Okay. So hi, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today to making the switch without a hitch, taking a strategic approach to switching marketing automation. My name is Kelsey Yen. I'm a demand gen manager here at Acton, and I will be your moderator for this presentation. We have some great information today. It's a topic that I think is near and dear to a lot of our marketing hearts. It's marketing automation and how to make a non-disruptive switch, which I think a lot of us are very, very interested in knowing how to do that. So great stuff for you guys today. I'm going to go through some brief housekeeping as the rest of people join in. First of all, this webinar is being recorded. You'll receive a link to the on-demand recording within a couple of business days. So keep an eye out on your email for that. Feel free to forward it to your colleagues or coworkers who you think might find this useful. There will be a Q&A at the end of this presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A chat, and we will get to those at the end. And then also there is a chat feature. Since this is a topic that is near and dear to a lot of us, let us know what you're thinking as we discuss some of these big points and what your take is on it. We'd love to hear that. Lastly, there will be a survey at the end of this webinar. So if you have time, please feel free to answer those questions. It'll be brief, maybe 3 to 4 questions, but your feedback helps us make better presentations. So without further ado, let's get started. Today we're doing this presentation with the SVP of Marketing at Acton, Jeff Day, and Brandon LaRock, Managing Partner at Access Marketing Company. Two really knowledgeable people on this whole topic. So great hands. Take it away, guys.
All right. Thank you, Kelsey. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today and taking time out of your busy lives. Yes, hopefully this is very useful. We want to quickly get to sharing the information of how our customers and Brandon's clients are managing we like to call it a switch, not a migration. We'll get to why we like to call it that. But as you replace one marketing automation solution with another, or frankly, a lot of this applies to almost any MarTech solution, some strategies that you can take to either optimize for speed of project or optimal outcome, and then a few pro tips and different approaches you can take, and some optimization strategies, and then finally a sort of a project plan. So really want to give you an idea, a bunch more ideas of how you can manage the switch and some frameworks that will help you get your arms around it as you think about that decision. So high level, I hate agenda sides. High level, we're going to spend a little bit of time setting context and why are people making the switch, and kind of get everybody aligned on why this is important. And then we do want to move pretty quickly to the core of this, which is talking about strategies and various approaches, as I just discussed. Also, a little bit of a housekeeping note for me. I'm terrible at monitoring the chat as I'm driving the slides. So Kelsey and Brandon, if you see stuff come up that you want to address, please just jump in and address it. Happy to make this a bit of a interactive Q&A if people have questions on whatever topic we're on at the moment. I'd love to address them in the heat of the moment, but yeah, I can't do it. I'm not that.
I'll keep an eye on them, Jeff, and I completely agree. The more of a conversation this can be, I know that's going to provide all of you a lot of value. So we're happy to share, everything that Acton does to help clients with this. I can share some stories about clients we've done this with. So by all means, if you have questions as we go, put them in the chat, and Kelsey and I will keep an eye on it.
Perfect. Actually, before we get started, I should back up. I'm sorry. I think everybody probably knows the role that I have as SVP of marketing at a software vendor, specifically Acton, who's hosting this webinar. But Access Marketing is a partner of ours, but they are an independent partner. They work with many marketing automation solutions. Brandon, I should let you introduce yourself, talk about your role and why you have probably more credibility in this particular topic than I do.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, actually, I was excited to do this with Acton. He's right. We're an agency. We do B2B marketing with a variety of tech stacks. Sometimes it's ones we bring to the table. Sometimes it's ones that our clients use. Acton, I'll admit, is one of our favorites. But it's not because we're a reseller. I don't get anything for being on this webinar. We don't get anything for bringing clients to Acton. It's just one of the ones that we prefer. But actually, what I wanted to do is just be available to you guys and to the Acton team to just sort of pass on some direct experience. MarTech is something that we deal with all the time, including helping clients decide to make changes to their MarTech, what they should change to, and how to handle those changes. So hopefully I can add that as part of this presentation. And Jeff, that's all I need to say.
Yeah, and he's being a little humble. Access Marketing leads these projects for clients. They will help manage the project of, a migration or a switch. They've done it before. They've got expertise in this space, and they can help you too. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. And then our own, I'm speaking from the credibility standpoint of, we help our customers, our new customers come on board to us. And so we've run a number of these switches projects, these replacement projects as well. So that's the background on us. Let's dive into the meat. Why does switching matter? Why are we talking about this now? We are seeing a increase and an increasing trend of companies switching out their MarTech stack, specifically their marketing automation stack. 1 out of 4, 23% of companies surveyed by this martech.org survey are switching out their marketing automation solution every year. 23%, that's 1 in 4. It's a lot. It's actually surprised us. It's a lot more than we would expect. But it actually makes sense if you think about the sort of macroeconomic situation that's going on in the last couple of years, which is kind of addressed on the right side. Teams are being forced to downsize their tech stacks. They're being forced to have, do more with less. They've got less budget, but their goals and what they're being asked to accomplish and drive growth is even more. We get that. We feel that as well. And then, it comes on top of, I think, this very truthy thing that a lot of us know is that Gartner reports is companies are only using about 1/3 of the capabilities in their overall tech stack. And so, a lot of our marketing tools have a lot more capabilities, and frankly, a lot of companies, users are paring back to ensure they get the most out of their not only marketing automation solutions, but everything across the MarTech stack, so that they're right sized and that their teams can actually be efficient with the tools that they have and get the most out of the tools that they have. So that's what's driving. That's why this matters. That's what's driving companies to make the switch. This is sort of shown in this is marketing charts illustration of the Gartner data from 2023 of, what are the obstacles to getting more out of your MarTech stack. On the left here, I want to kind of call out what we're hearing the most is this. It's the complexity. Our MarTech stack is too complex. Our marketing automation solution is too complex. That is causing real value problems in terms of we can't deliver our campaigns fast enough. It's taking 6 to 8 weeks to push a new campaign out, which means we can't push as many campaigns through, right? So it's a throughput thing as well. And just the sort of frustration and the number of experts that you have to do it. All of that is sourced by complexity, and it's not making your marketing team effective. And then that also, as I mentioned, a lot of people need SMEs and consultants to run various portions of their marketing automation suite. And that means that marketing teams aren't as effective, as efficient as getting the stuff done and getting the reports that they need, pushing programs out. And finding that talent is hard and expensive, which drives up your TCO. Brandon, what do you think of this? You deal with a lot more clients and various marketing automation solutions than I do. Kind of what's your view of what's happening in the world?
Sure. I think the lack of use part is huge. We do a lot of it, so we have an advantage that we're pretty good at it, which allows us to look at what technology can do and make good use of it. But I don't know that teams have that at the ready, or they had different expectations when they brought on. So now they're looking to make a change. Now they've learned a little bit, like, hey, let's make a change because what we brought on isn't what we actually need. It is too complex. We got sold on bells and whistles, and then we got into the reality of marketing and said, we don't actually use that stuff. So that, I think we've seen that driving a lot of that low utilization is we didn't need that in the first place. So now I think we're seeing some of the decisions to switch come from a little bit of maturity or a little bit of experience, and needing to sort of make a fresh start and say, okay, we're now we know what we need to do. Let's go do it. And I think that's the important part. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, about our opinion on how you should approach the switch when you get there. And I think it aligns well to what Acton is recommending. So
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so this is reiterating the three areas that we're seeing lines up directly with Gartner's stuff. It's the complexity, and that's really driving productivity and output. It's the total cost of ownership, not only the subscription cost. Frankly, that's actually not the worst thing here. It's all of the total cost of ownership stuff in it, which is the tech consultants. It's the team that's needed just to drive the technology, and it's the constant upsells and hidden overcharges and things like that. We hear a lot of frustration in it. We get it. And then, a lot of, as some of the vendors have been acquired by big conglomerates, they're focused on other things right now, and they're not innovating. And, not to point fingers, but I think there are a couple of vendors that we all know, and we hear a lot of stuff about that. They're like, hey, we're not getting the attention, and we feel like we're on an aging platform. So we need to get on something that's innovating and moving forward. Of course, if you fix those problems, the flip side of the coin is you get more done. And that's huge. We're all being asked to do more, drive more campaigns, use more of the sort of omni-channel marketing that marketing automation makes available to you. Think not just about customer acquisition, but also about how do we engage more with our existing customers so that we can, they can get more value out of the product, and then we can upsell and drive up our retention rates and all that good stuff too. So all things that drive up to the financial things that matter. Reduce cost, of course, and that's really, I guess, again, reducing the ownership cost, and take advantage of, all the new capabilities. Like, the elephant in the room is AI and analytics, and how can we use those capabilities to do more, be more productive, drive better marketing, and understand what's working and not within our own efforts to improve. So
Jeff, I agree with that. I really think that first one, the get more done, is hugely important. And we look at it as get more things done that matter.
Yeah.
Right. So that underutilization of capabilities is one thing, but don't do it in order to use the software. Find something that you need, a goal you need to hit, find a metric you need to improve, find, customers you need to get, and then leverage that technology or use your technology to go do those things. So getting more done that matters, I think, is hugely impactful on the other two. Even, like, that's where your cost goes. If you're doing things that aren't turning results, you're wasting more money on top of technology. So that's a huge one. And I think you're going to cover that later too, in the way you go about your change or switch.
Right. Totally. The technology should be a tool for you to make you more efficient. The tail should not be wagging the dog, right? You should not be a victim to the technology. Oh yes, and of course, this is what we hear a lot and what we see a lot. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to, this is why we're here today, right? Like, I don't want to make the switch. It's a project. It's going to take extra effort over everything that we're doing already. But hey, the problem is, like, kicking the can down the road isn't going to make those problems going to go away. They're only going to get worse, right? Like, if next year the complexity is going to go up, costs are going up, innovation isn't necessarily increasing, that means your team productivity is going down. So these problems only get worse if they're not addressed. So while, I forget the word that Kelsey used, seamless switch, we recognize it's not seamless. It is work. It will take effort. And yet at some point you got to do it, or you're not going to address the things that are causing you to not be as productive as you are, not do those things that you want to do, and continue to get the sort of cost of value ratio off balance.
This man, that team productivity one, Jeff, that's the silent killer.
Yeah.
You know, like I think for those of you on that came to this session, we're gonna move quickly into the how do you go about doing this better. But this is the thing that you don't even know is happening. It's kind of like those relatives that come into town and say, "Oh my gosh, you've grown so much," because they haven't seen it. Like you don't notice it happening every day. It's getting bigger, it's getting bigger, it's getting bigger. And then you take a fresh look and it's like, oh my gosh, it's grown so much. That team productivity thing is something we see all the time. You start compensating and finding ways around the difficulties that you have. We see people start compromising on the results. So they'll focus on vanity metrics like opens and clicks instead of real things like revenue and customer opportunities and things like that. And if you're struggling with a core piece of your tech stack, that team productivity one is the silent killer. You'll actually hire someone before you'll reconsider the value of doing something better. So that one, if there's anyone on the call that really wants to make a mark, look at whether your organization's doing any of those things, because there could be a huge opportunity to very quickly and pretty easily actually address those things.
Yeah, totally agree. Thank you. Okay, let's get to the meat of it. You want to make a switch. How do you make this with the least impact? Not zero impact. We get it. Least impact. First of all, I preface this. I don't call it a migration. Migration, I think, is the term that everybody uses, and it plants this thought around, I've got to migrate everything. I'm going to take everything I'm doing over here, and I'm going to move it over here. That's a horrible idea. You're gonna migrate all your complexity. So we don't like to call it a migration. We call it a strategic refresh, or a switch, as we've been calling it in this webinar. So if you think about it more as a strategic refresh, that's an opportunity, right? You're refreshing, we're thinking about it strategically, we're moving to a better place, and we're not going to migrate all that stuff, which has many, many benefits. 3 strategies for shifting, kind of a lot of words. We are sharing the presentation, so we'll try to go through it pretty quickly, and we're going to dive into each of these, but basically the 3 strategies on the spectrum, right? So it's a spectrum. So yeah, you can kind of mix and match a little bit in the middle, but it's lift and shift, which is the migration. I'm going to move everything I have over here, and I'm going to move it into a new platform. It's kind of the easiest on you all as the customer, because you can just say, hey, just move everything over. But it's literally the longest project time. And it's really the worst outcome, because everything you're trying to get rid of, the total cost of ownership, the complexity, you're migrating all that stuff, right? So we highly recommend not doing that. On the other side of this strategy spectrum is the build everything from scratch. There actually is a lot of benefit in this, that you will optimize everything. But if it's also sort of the highest dependency on you, the team, because you've got to be involved in everything. And if you build everything from scratch, this will actually be the longest project time. So what we recommend for almost everybody is this strategic refresh in the middle, which is identify what you do want to migrate. Like, this program's active, we like it, we pretty much just want to replicate it over there, making maybe slight improvements based on technology differences. There's maybe a middle bucket of things like, well, this is our evergreen stuff, and God, we've really been meaning to upgrade that for, a year now, and there's some things we'd like to do. So let's refresh that stuff and then rebuild it the way that we actually want it to operate as we move it over to the new system. And then there's a good chunk of stuff, and it's a good chunk. Is most of the customers that we deal with, we see that like 30 to 50% of what they have, the assets, the programs, the scoring, the campaigns, the emails, it's old and they're not using it anymore. Don't migrate that stuff, right? That is going to be your biggest benefit to reducing the overall project time frame and effort, is just identifying that stuff that you really don't need anymore and leaving it behind. So the strategic refresh kind of leans over to the rebuild, but it's like saying, hey, don't migrate that stuff. The stuff that is active and working, you love it. Yeah, just migrate that, move it over as quickly and as efficiently as you can, and then think about, refreshing the stuff in the middle. So I think, sorry, I'm refreshing my slides a little bit here. We can talk about it in this context. Those three strategies in terms of how long the sort of project is itself. The migration is kind of quick up front because you just say, I want to move everything over, but the implementation time is long and complicated, and it's going to be the sort of longest and most complex project of them. The rebuild is kind of tends to be a long one because it involves everybody and you're making adjustments to everything that you want to move over. And then the strategic refresh is saying, hey, you're actually not going to move a lot, so we can greatly reduce the overall time frame. It takes a little bit more planning than, say, the migration, but the implementation is faster once you get to it. Let's spend some time talking about these strategies. Brandon, what do you think, and what's your advice?
Yeah, I mean, I can actually, I'd love to share, if I can, I'd love to share. We just did one of these. We just did one. We finished it. It was in this case, it was a HubSpot to act on switch. We didn't know it was a new client. We didn't know going in, but they were saying, hey, we're considering making adjustments. What we're doing is not working. They knew that much. So they asked us to go in and create them a plan. Part of that plan was, hey, we think you should switch your MarTech platform for a variety of reasons. Part of it was the ability to talk to systems they already used. Anyway, there's a litany of reasons. But I think the impactful part was they asked us to do an audit of their HubSpot account because they wanted us to migrate everything over and they wanted us to size the project to do it for them. But instead of doing that, we came back with some fairly eye-opening data for them. And I wanted to share a little bit of that with this audience. So they had 119 different lists and segments in their HubSpot account, and they asked us to migrate everything. However, upon further inspection, taking the opportunity to do a strategic refresh of it, only 24 of those 119 lists and segments were in use, and
Wow.
only one of them had been updated in any way in the last 12 months.
Wow.
So essentially, it was a lot of just unused. It was like they were afraid to clean out the garbage and they were afraid to throw things away, right? They just did. And this is very typical of marketing automation platforms we see they've been running for a long time, is nobody is willing to throw stuff away. It's almost like that one adapter in your junk drawer that you know someday you're going to need it. You don't. You won't. They had 29 landing pages. Only 12 of those were actually published and live. Of those 12, 4 of them were thank you pages. And then, so there were 8 really functional marketing pages at all. And the most recent of those was updated 3 years ago. So again, it wasn't necessarily like they didn't need a lot of what they were doing because they weren't doing the right things. And I think that's the biggest opportunity you have. If you're thinking about switching a piece of technology, I would almost ignore the technology question. I would think of it and position it as a strategic improvement of what we're doing. And as a result, we would like to change this piece of technology because that will get you doing the right things.
No, think about switching the technology too. Come to act
Well,
on.
but I think from a buy-in perspective, no, I get what
I'm
you're
kidding
saying,
you.
Jeff,
I'm
but
kidding you.
I think from
You're
a
totally
buy-in
right.
perspective, right, the value you're looking for is from doing better things and getting better outcomes, and choosing the right piece of technology can help you do that for sure.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
they were sold by HubSpot on the chat feature, but they didn't end up using it. They
Right.
got sold on the CRM. Their entire CRM for after years of use showed one closed deal that was marked as closed lost, which means they weren't actually using it as a CRM. So that's why I like to not focus as much on features, but focus on what are you trying to get done? And that's why that strategic refresh has real meaning.
Yeah.
For in our world of like doing the marketing, is take it as an opportunity to do better things, and then use that technology, the switch to technology as an instrument to get those things done. That's the marketer's
And I
view of
totally
it.
agree. I'm being flippant. Of course, as the VP of marketing, I have to say I would love people, to come to act on, and I think we've got a lot of benefits to sell them, but that's not what we're here about today. And your strategic direction is exactly right. Take time to focus on what you really need to achieve in the next 2 years, not in the next 10 years, and identify a plan and a technology. What's the technology that's going to enable you to get there? That is right for that strategy, right? And I want to call out on your example, like, so that was like from 119 to 24. That's, I can't do the math. That's more than 70% of, the campaigns weren't being used. It sounded like about only a third of the landing pages were being used. That's probably more than what I've heard of us dealing with. But the point is, like, so they didn't migrate maybe 70-60% of the stuff that they had in their system. That's a huge project benefit.
Yeah.
So,
and at the end of the day, we
as you
ended up
go into
recommending that they actually migrate 0 of the assets. So like
right,
emails and landing pages, but rather take the 4 valuable ones and actually
do the
update and
improvement.
redesign them to be better performing in your
Yeah.
new platform. And that was the opportunity they took, and instantly they're getting better outcomes.
Right. And
So
when you think about it that
that's
way, you're like, oh, that's pretty approachable. If I had to migrate all of that stuff, that's kind of a big project. But if I only have to, maybe if I pick the top 4 that I want to refresh right now, oh yeah, that's totally approachable. So that's the biggest so getting back to, hey, how do we do this with the least impact? Lesson number 1, like, think about what you really need in your new system, what's most important, and what you can leave behind. And that's probably going to have the biggest impact in paring down the whole project effort as a whole.
Yeah.
Hey guys, we got a message from Colleen, and I feel like it's a good time to get this answered. What are some
Awesome.
specific criteria or metrics you can look at to determine if this is something that should actually get moved over to the new platform?
Great
Well,
question.
Jeff, do you want to take that? Do you want to?
Sure. We can both have
Sure.
our perspective on it. I think that the Kelsey's actually would be a great person to lean on this as well, as she's done it recently for our own. She's reassessed all of our campaigns as well. But I think first and foremost, it's pretty cut and dry. Like, are you using them? Are they active? How many new leads, participants have gone through those campaigns recently? And pretty quickly you can get an assessment of, this is active and we do need to keep it running. You could then drill in and measure to Brandon's point of being a little more strategic, and is it actually driving value? It's like, okay, well, let's do an assessment of what was, even if we have people going through these campaigns, what was the outcome? Did we actually create any opportunities? Did we drive any engagement with existing customers? Did we, whatever the call to action was, did we actually drive that? Because, even if it's active, if it's not driving to the outcome that you want, it's not effective. So you need to rethink it anyway, right? And so I think there, maybe it's a little bit of a decision tree at the top is like, are we even using this anymore? It's pretty easy to pair out things that you're not using at all. If you are using it, then it's assessment of, is this what we want? Is it being effective in driving the outcome that we actually want? And, we recently went through a refresh of many of our programs. And part of that decision and thing that we were assessing was, is this the message that we still want to be putting into the market? Is this the right campaign that we want to be doing? It may be working to some extent and it may be active, but we've evolved over the last 18 months. Is this the thing that we still want to be running? Maybe not. Maybe I have to redo this thing anyway, because it's not the campaign we want to be running. So, I don't think I hit on specific metrics, but hopefully that would be the decision tree that I would go through to quickly get to what I want to move and not.
Yeah. I heard someone use the analogy of cleaning out your closet. So the first thing is, yeah, utility of what's there. So you look at everything in your closet, and if you haven't worn it in 24 months, high likelihood you could just throw it away and you'd never miss it. Right? So marketing moves fast enough, our industries move fast enough, our messaging, our products, everything moves fast. If you got stuff that really hasn't been updated, refreshed, or used in a year or two, I would just put that in I'd put that in the throwaway bucket to begin with. But from the stuff that might be active, the stuff that you actually wear, the stuff that you might have taken off the shelf, put on, do you like it? That's things like the vanity, we call them vanity metrics. They're things like opens and clicks and visits and downloads and things like that. As marketers, they're valuable. They're valuable to see if the assets we built are engaging and if they are being consumed by folks. But then there's the level of, do other people like this outfit in my closet? And that's where, are those things that have high engagement, are they driving value for my business? So as a marketer, if we're not focused on revenue, if we're not focused on customer acquisition, if we're not focused on things that end up hitting the bottom line, a lot of our data would show that like we're losing out to sales teams. And that's why the CRO position was created, is because, okay, well, we need to get more sales orientation to marketing. So metrics I might use, Colleen, are, contribution to opportunity count, contribution to closed revenue, and find the things in your marketing automation environment that are contributing to those things. Those are worth taking a closer look at. I would still refresh. I would still look at them from a marketer's perspective and include them in your strategic refresh. You might still be able to make them better. So that's the way I would look at it, is, throw away the stuff you're not even wearing anymore. Consider the stuff that you're wearing, and then find out if other people like the stuff you're putting on. Kind of the way I look at it.
It's a great analogy. You got me thinking about the closet, and my
Well,
problem
my wife
is like
just went through one of those like professional closet reorg things, and it was amazing. It's like it's just a bunch of stuff gone. She uses everything that's hanging there now.
my problem is outdoor gear. Like, oh, but I love that Patagonia vest that I haven't
Let's
worn
not
in
get in
2
my
years.
garage, Jeff.
All right, back to the topic at hand. All right, so the next area that can help you sort of reduce risk and move a little bit faster in the project and minimize your impact. I'm going to keep coming back to that because that was the promise I made. I talk about this dimension as agile or waterfall. It could be also called incremental or all at once type of project management. But the idea is, I think many of us think about a migration project like this, and I'm using the bad M word, is because it's a serial project. I need to move everything over and rebuild everything in my new system before I turn it on and turn off the old system. That is one way you can do it. That's kind of in development terms, that's the waterfall methodology. It's serial. We're going to map everything out. We're going to build a spec in the front end. We're going to define what we're going to move, and then we're going to implement, and then we're going to go. And we're going to turn it on in the end, and hopefully everything works great. Usually something doesn't. And that's that sort of project planning. The alternative is, and both of these things work, so don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't do that and do the other. There's sort of time and place for everything. But there are a lot of advantages in going the agile approach. And the agile approach is identify the ones that you want to start with and run both systems in parallel for a period of time. Move over some campaigns or build your next campaigns in the new system and get them up and running. Take the learning from that project and building out those campaigns. Teach your team how to use it during that same time period. Take the quick wins that you're going to get, because that, we can, once we get for Act-On, once we get the software implemented, in like a couple of weeks' time, that's like literally getting it up and installed. Building a campaign can be a week, right? For sort of not even the most basic campaign, but a standard average campaign takes us a week to build. So you can be up and running on some of these things in a month's time, maybe more conservatively 6 weeks to 8 weeks, right? It doesn't need to be a huge project. And then each one is just another 4 days to get the next campaign out. And so in that way, you get a very quick win, and you're moving, and your team's trained, and you're using the new platform, and you're showing the success, and you're testing it as you go, as opposed to this big waterfall thing where you don't really see the outcome until the very end. I know you guys like to use this practice as well. Brandon, what are your thoughts?
You bet. I'm gonna say that Jeff is sandbagging on the timeline 100%. So whenever you're making a technology change, I usually find the longest pole in that process is finding the person at my client to talk to. But you guys are probably that person, so you won't have that problem. Jeff will kill me for saying it, but we usually stand up act on in a couple of days, not 6 weeks, not 4 weeks. Like I have a 23-year-old marketing automation person on my team that works with our clients and says, hey, I need you to do this, 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 and this. And then once that's done, we could actually run a campaign starting right then. So yeah, I think the setup is super fast, but that aside, the value, I think it's huge in taking the agile approach. Now, you don't have to study agile methodologies, but the idea of do one thing, just do it, get the experience, get it out there, get it in market, look at what it does. You might even say, it's terrible, I want to change it. But the great thing is you can now roll that lesson into the second thing you do and do that. And then by the time you get to the fifth thing that you do want to keep or that you do want to refresh, it's optimized. You're doing better stuff already. So the downside of the waterfall, and I will say, management asks for waterfall in 99% of the cases. They want to know all the dates. They want to know all the things that everyone's going to have to do in advance and when it's going to be done. And we fight that a lot because I truly believe you should get something going. It's marketing, right? There's a lot of subjectivity. So put it in market, try it out, see what it does, then learn from that, adjust it while you're building the second thing, and then take all those lessons learned. Like I said, it rolls over and rolls over and rolls over, and it's this constant improvement that also gets done in a shorter period of time. So you can tell I'm way more excited about it than Jeff was, because like we when we do this as an agency, we live and die on our results. This is the best way for us to get good results from clients, is like, let's get started. And it does go way faster than you think if you take it that way.
Yeah.
I think the eye rolling, oh my gosh, I have to migrate from one system to another. And the reason that's been so painful is because people do try to eat the elephant in one bite. You can't do it. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So take a bite, then take another bite, then take another bite, and you'll be through it before you know it. That's been our experience.
Yeah. And I was sandbagging a little bit because I know
I know.
we know that we could stand up an instance very quickly. What usually happens though is because you're doing domain, you're doing subdomains, and you're having to do that stuff, and you get an IT involved, and so it's usually the client side that kind of drags these things out a little bit. But
yeah, the steps themselves are easy. Getting someone to do them is usually like the longer part.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And the other thing that Brandon actually brought this to me as we were talking, I don't know, some weeks back. This doesn't necessarily have to be a migration too. Like you could just start rolling out your new campaigns. You could roll out your 2024 campaigns in the new system, build them from fresh in the new system, and then over some period of time, you'll probably want to migrate some evergreen campaigns in reality. But the idea is like, you don't really have to do a migration. Just start using the new system, and pretty soon all the stuff in the old system is going to be old, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, we don't even use that anymore. Just shut it down.
Yeah. And
another approach to that, if that works easier for you.
Jeff, I know we've been able to accomplish this even during like a trial period.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we sign up for a trial, we get stuff going, client goes, okay, now I'm comfortable. And the overlap's enough to just move on.
Hold that thought. I want to talk about this example when we get to sort of the partner discussion and the value of working with a partner, because I think this is incredibly powerful for people who don't want to take on a migration project. So I said that we were going to get to like our basic plan framework. Nothing we invented here, really. This is classic project management framework, but it is one that we've evolved into how we manage a switch and an upgrade. So 4-phase is that pretty much everybody has to go through. The first one's the discovery phase. We've been talking about it. Take an assessment, assess what you use, what you don't use, what you want to migrate as whole, what you want to refresh, any levels, how many assets do you have, how many like hard assets like emails and downloads and imagery and stuff versus campaigns and some of the setup stuff. Want to do that discovery so you know what you're dealing with, but I also showcase, right, it's an opportunity to say, listen, actually 60% of this stuff we're not using anymore, so we don't need that. Plan then is the plan around, well, how are we going to actually get this done? And this is where you can decide waterfall or agile. And you can say, listen, yeah, if we could get these 4 campaigns up and running, in a week, like Brandon said we could, that would be great. Let's do that. And then we can look at the next one and the next one, and we'll follow an agile plan here. Phase 3 is the implement. It's like, great, let's do it. Go. We rebuild identified assets or migrate them if they're, like imagery, and get the new campaigns built out and get running. And then phase 4 is, the go live is really more of a milestone. It's like, yep, we just turned it on and it's running. That happened. But then the ongoing is like, as Brandon said, let's measure. Is this what we wanted to actually have happen? And we can learn and tweak and continue as you do, hopefully in your day jobs using your marketing automation solution. So that's our 4-phase plan. We have a framework. We've got a lot more detail behind it. We've got spreadsheets and PDFs and everything that we use with our team. I'm sure Brandon's got something similar he uses with his clients. I don't know. I kind of like to move on. Like this feels like this is kind of like we've got the methodology. We can help you through this if you want to. We're happy to share it with you if we get it in a discussion, whether you choose Acton or not. So let's kind of move over to some of the pro tips and some other things. Pro tips. Yes, conduct a high-level audit. What we just talked about. Assess what you have. Assess how much you think you actually need moving forward or not. How much you want to refresh, rebuild.
Clean out that closet.
Clean out that closet. Yeah.
Clean out that closet. Yeah.
And Brandon, I know will jump in on this one, already has, like, don't miss this chance to improve your strategy. Think strategic. Don't just think, oh, I just need to get everything over as fast as possible. No. This is a huge opportunity. What do you want to accomplish in 2024 and 2025? And how can we set things up from campaigns, from technology, from your approach, to how you structure your campaigns? Kelsey just restructured all of our campaigns, and we saw, I can't even remember what the number is, an incredible improvement, like an 83% improvement in engagement rate.
Mm-hmm.
So think about the strategic opportunity. I know this is a big one for you. You want to jump in here?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're right. You guessed right. Yeah, that's my favorite one. And the advice I'd have for all of you on the call is kill the sacred cows. So I've been on many a call, sometimes with a technology provider that's, the question they get is they get a lot of questions like, well, can your system do this? Can your system do this? And they're going down the list of what they're currently doing. And I see that as a massive lost opportunity, because if you're just trying to replicate features and functions you already have, one, I don't know why you're doing that. If you like the features and functions you already have, stick with what you have. But moreover, if you're asking those questions, you probably haven't even considered, what could I do differently if I had a different future state, right? Like, what can you, I would really love for all of you to ask, if you're in a technology, discussion with a provider, is what can you help me do, right? Like as a marketer, I've been tasked with getting into that market space. What are ways that your customers have done that? What can your platform do? Or if it's a more of a marketing strategy conversation, say, do you have any, anyone we could talk to that has done this? Because I know we're willing to help in those situations. We're kind of like we subscribe to the give, the give philosophy is like, yeah, we'll help you do good stuff and that'll eventually come back around. So just, yeah, number 2, don't miss that chance. It's a unique moment of time. You're already going to be, inducing some change. Take advantage of that. It's a huge opportunity to that you can seize to make things better, to get better performance, less work to do it. Try some different things. It's yeah, I can't obviously I can't talk about it enough. So I'll just shut up and let you get back to it, Jeff.
Yeah, one framework that we use, and we have a an assessment guide. It's a little bit of a TCO, but it's also sort of some of the soft values of things that you could obtain by making a switch. And in that, we like to talk about, well, what does better look like for you? Like, step back and say, what are you being asked to do? What are your business goals? What are your objectives? if you could change your operational environment to reduce some of that complexity and frustration and get more done, what does better look like? Identify that, and then say, okay, how can I think about my technology stack and, what I'm doing within it, specifically around campaigns that I'm running in the marketing automation world, to get to that outcome. We'd love, of course, to get you to that outcome. And we think it's a combination, as Brandon's been saying, of the technology, the way what campaigns you're running, the way you structure them, and then just kind of how you think about your marketing strategy to align to those outcomes. So big opportunity here. Number 3, I think, is, take the opportunity to be strategic and smarter. This is trying to roll it down the next level. Think about the stuff that you're using in the marketing automation world, in this case, the assets, the campaigns. How do you want to adjust those to get your outcomes better? That's really the smarter. You guys are all smart. This is smarter. And think about how you get to that better state. Can I get more of my team using the system so that they're more capable, we're moving faster, we're getting more done, and they're in there saying, oh, I can now, not only can I measure through the analytics and the reporting capabilities what's working, what's not, but I also have the power to go in and change something. I don't have to go to a third party, consultant or SME, and everything goes through a bottleneck there. So how can we get your overall team being more effective and working in a smarter way? Critical to build the business alignment and get alignment. So if you once you've done that strategic, once you've identified what does better look like to me, tie it back to the goals that you're being asked to hit and the business value that it drives. If we do this, we can run more campaigns, we'll attract more customers, we'll generate more pipeline, we'll engage more of our current customers, we'll increase retention, we can upsell, whatever that outcome is, drive it, build the business case that say, if you want us to hit those goals, we need to do this to get there. And here's what we think we could achieve if we do this. And then get, alignment from your VP, your CMO, your CFO, your IT department, that, they need to support this effort in order for you to hit the business goals. I'm pausing for a second to see if Brandon wants to jump in.
I'm gonna after you get done with 6, there's a point I'd like to overlay on what you're saying. I love everything you're talking about. It is important to not do it in a silo, but go ahead.
Yep. That it's an area that, once people get down the project path, they want to do it. They've, started to think about the strategy, they're moving forward. If they don't go and do the, the business case and the alignment, it becomes a hurdle. Number 6, I kind of talked about 5 already. Number 6, identify and align key stakeholders. That's more within the project. I did mention IT. IT usually becomes an external stakeholder, external to the marketing organization. Marketing ops, if they're rev ops, if they're a separate organization. Identify who the players should be that are going to have, who are going to be impacted by this project, or who, is required to drive success. Get them in early on the planning and what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay, so can I jump in there?
Yeah. Please.
Okay, so I'd love for you guys to have a takeaway for 4, 5, and 6. When I said earlier, like positioning this as a tech project, this is, I think, where that's a mistake, right? So for a couple of reasons. If you think about your exec level sponsors or the people that are going to fund this, or like through budgets, or are going to buy into the effort levels and just you spending time on this, whether it's technical or marketing, it's a lot easier to get buy-in if you say, I'm going to go improve our marketing. Like, this is an initiative not to migrate a piece of technology. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that. If you think you don't want to do that, your stakeholders certainly don't want to do that. But they do want to get better results, right? They do want to, reach more customers. They do want to improve revenue. So if you position it at that, it's like, yeah, one of the things we have to do is update some technology, but it's because we're focusing on this result, or we're trying to get this outcome, and we've got hurdles, and we're just going to eliminate those hurdles. It's just a better way to position it and actually get the business case bought into. That is the actual business case, is we're going to go through this effort to do these things, right? But also the key stakeholders, Jeff mentioned IT. we are seeing IT have a heavier and heavier hand in marketing technology decisions, and they don't like change. So if you pitch a technology project, you probably instantly have objections. They don't want to do it, they don't want to take the time, and they don't have the money to do it. But if it's not a technology project, if it's a marketing project, and hey, IT, we're going to need a couple things from you in order to get this done, then it becomes they have to veto the marketing outcome, and that's much harder to do. So from just a strategy perspective, we find it goes through faster and you get more buy-in by not couching it as a tech project. Because at the end of the day, it shouldn't be. It should be an improvement project for your outcomes as marketers. So that's one thing. And then no, I guess I did cover it. So I covered the IT part, and then I covered the business case part. Is it should be focused on getting to a new outcome, and then your technology piece of it is that, yeah, I got to swap some things out, and that'll help me get there.
Yep.
We actually help our clients do that with their internal management systems a lot, and that's an approach that does make it go smoother, a lot less frustration on your part too.
Yep. 100% agree with all that, and I can't wait to talk about how you can kind of help them overcome the IT project objection. So we'll get there. We only have one slide left, everybody. I'm sorry. You get two marketers talking, and we're passionate and we talk too much, but one slide left. Stay with us. Number 7, do leverage the provider support or PS teams. Like if you're moving to our platform, we've got professional services teams who have done this. Get as much out of us as you can, right? And we want to make you successful. So don't, do get as much out of us as you can is the message. Take advantage of us. Number 8, don't underestimate the time it takes. And yet do take advantage of all the tips we're telling you to accelerate quick wins. Like it doesn't have to be painful. We're not saying that it's going to be super easy. I don't want to sort of set false expectations and say, oh, you'll have this all done in 2 weeks. No, we're not saying that. But we are saying there are, a lot of ways to fast track. There are a lot of ways to get to quick wins if that's the most important metric for you and your team. You can move really quickly after that. But we do fully recognize that this will take some involvement from you and your marketing team to identify, to do the assessment, to say, oh, I do want to refresh that. Well, you're the only ones that know how to refresh it in the way that you want it to be in the end. So there is effort. We highly recommend the agile approach because it accelerates the quick wins. And then this is kind of a transition statement. Do consider using an external SME partner, such as Access Marketing, to increase your success. You'll reduce risk in stumbling over known roadblocks or potholes or whatever. You'll increase your chance of success. You can accelerate the work, one, by making sure that you've got a project plan that accelerates things, but two, offloading some of the work that you or IT might think they have to do and might be objecting because they don't have time in their busy schedule. You could leverage a partner to do a lot of this work. They will get you, if you go with someone like Access who's done this before and understands the implementation plan and the switch plan, you'll end up with a better plan. And then a beautiful thing that we slightly touched on, and I want to touch on more. They can completely offload all the risk. Brandon, you talk about it. I'll set you up because I think this is just magic, right? Like if you're really worried about it, have them stand up the instance for you. Have them start to build out the new campaigns for you with your direction. Allow them to get it up and running. They've done this many, many times. Brandon, you heard it all here. He could have it up and running in a week. And they can get it all running in a completely no risk environment for you. And you could run out a campaign and then you go and say, listen, we've got it going. This is working. We love it. The team's, played with it a little bit. We've taken a lot of the risk out of the equation. We want to move forward with everything else.
Yeah.
Brandon.
So Jeff,
a lot to say.
And we not actually, I don't have a lot to say, but a couple things I think are relevant. So I'm here today for really 2 reasons. One, we've used Acton for ourselves and our customers almost since its inception, right? And we use all the other ones. So we use the bad words like HubSpot and Marketo and stuff like that because our clients might already have them. So we're a little bit unbiased in that sense. And so all I can tell you is that the reason I do webinars with Acton is because we like that one the best. That's just the short answer version. We move fastest with it, gives us the best information, and it has the features that our clients will actually use. So that 30% utilization gets closer to 80, 90% because it actually has stuff that's useful to a marketer. Okay, that aside, obviously, the other selfish part is, yeah, I'd love to work with any of you that need help, right? That's what we do. We're a marketing consulting and agency firm. So everything from I've got a team but no leader and I need CMO level consulting, all the way down to I need an extra set of hands that really knows how to do some stuff. We could do all that. So obviously, if you need the help, reach out to me. Jeff's going to show my email address at the end of the webinar. We'd love to work with you. But that's not I don't think that's the takeaway about considering a partner. What I would say is, again, in the interest of seizing the opportunity, it is hands down the best way to discover things you didn't know or didn't think of, right? We use consultants and partners all the time to stay on the bleeding edge of new things, right? Like we don't know everything all the time. We have to learn it just like everybody else. And I guess the point I would make is our experience in collaborating with partners is that it is the fastest, best, and most effective way for us to discover things that we could be doing that we didn't realize, or to learn something new that we can put to use in our own practices. So from that perspective, I think it is really valuable to involve a third party, right? Work with the Acton folks. They're great. They're smart. They want you to be successful. Work with us. We do too, but we have different perspectives, right? So you're going to get, multiple sides of that dice. You'll get to see it all. So I guess that would be my takeaway. Yeah. So whether it's us or whether you have an agency that you use, I would get them involved. I'd ask their opinions. I'd ask like, hey, have you done this before? Have you not done this before? What have you seen? What kind of the stuff we're sharing today? We're hoping to give you that perspective that it's not a tech migration, it's a strategic refresh. And if you do that way, now there's real value you can get by working with other perspectives. So I think that's the biggest thing. And it does all these things that Jeff is showing. But I think that seizing a chance to do something different and new that's potentially better, I think is the biggest value.
Perfect. In the interest of time, we have 2 minutes left in the hour. Sorry, I generally like to wrap these things up in 45 minutes, understanding you're all busy and it's hard to stay on for an hour, but there's a lot of information to share. So kind of summarizing everything, what we wanted to impart to you was like, hey, there is strategy, there is plan. We gave you some frameworks that you can use to think about it. There are ways to lessen the impact quite considerably. So it's probably not as hard as you think, and there's ways to make it a lot easier. And like one of the big ways to reduce risk and make it easier is to partner with a partner, and have them, take all the risk out of it and, get things up and running for you very quickly, run some campaigns. It's almost like a pilot program, but it's also a jump start, right? So hopefully this was helpful. Kelsey, right at the top of the hour, I'm very sorry that we didn't leave much for Q&A. We're happy to stay. I'm happy to stay on and answer any questions. What do you got?
Do you have any quick questions, Kelsey, that people posed yet?
We did get some questions. They're not quick, but we can answer them here and we'll send out the recording. And then we can also reply back to you via email.
Okay.
So, and we kind of touched on this a little bit before, but one question that Adam asked is, I feel like a lot of times marketing will want to make the switch, but approval to do so is a different story. What are your tips for actually selling the business case when you don't have validation that this solution will drive those results?
I think I'd reiterate some of the stuff that, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just gonna say, you got to make the business case. You got to tie, and sorry, a little bit of a shameless, like, yes, we understand this, and we understand that you got to make the business case. We created this assessment guide, TCO assessment guide, that's available off of our website. Maybe we'll even include it in the follow-up if we can. But to sort of identify what your cost is today, like how many programs are you getting out? How many team members have access into the system? How many consultants are required? Map all that stuff out as the costs, and then identify this better state that you think you can get to. And what does that mean in total cost of ownership savings, which, you know, everybody loves dollars and cents. So you've got hard costs, you've got soft costs, but also, to Brandon's point, what's the value? What can you get to? How many more programs can you run? How much faster can you get them out? Does it align to some of the goals that you're being asked? Like, you know, either achieve more, or, you know, we want to go after a new market. This is going to help us get to a new market because it's going to enable us to do more. Maybe it's a different capability that you're not using today. Like if you're using it purely for email and nurturing, what about bringing in omni-channel, social media, SMS, any of those things? What about, you know, direct customer communications to drive retention? So if you can add those value things that would be additive to you, that's how you build a business case that will align to value and say, hey, if we do this, it's just as Brandon said, it's not about the tech. We need to make a change so that we can drive at these things that you're asking us to do.
Yeah, we can do these things. We can do these other things faster. We can do these other things better. I can get these better results. You notice I haven't talked about tech at all. That was Adam, you're getting at my point about it's not about the technology. So if you make it about tech, it's easy to say, no, we don't want to switch, because everyone has that stigma in their mind about these big migrations. That's not what you're doing. You're improving the marketing. Oh, by the way, to do that, we're going to have to swap this thing out.
Here's where I jammed up today and what our costs are.
Yep. Here's where I will be tomorrow.
If we do this, here's what it will look like, either from a cost standpoint or a value standpoint, on the other side.
100%.
And we've got a plan. I went to this great webinar, got a plan. They laid it all out for me. Yeah. And we're happy to take it the next step too.
Great. And then just as a reminder, I did drop the TCO assessment in the chat. So that actual assessment is there for you to grab. It's ungated, so take it for free. And yeah, I think that'll wrap up our presentation for today. If you enjoyed it, we have several other events and webinars coming up. You can check them out at act-on.com/events for a full schedule. And thank you all for your time. Have a great one.